Hello and welcome to the Interactive and Immersive HQ. My name is Marco and I work as an immersive media developer, and one of the skills that is often asked for is of course to add audio reactivity to all kinds of animations. So in today's video I show you how I created this audio reactive instancing setup here, which is basically using some patterns, so sine waves, to define the position of the instances, and then we will extract some data from our music, and to drive the scale of the instances here. Alright, I really like to use instancing in general because you can get all kinds of outcomes here. So after this tutorial, also feel free to experiment with different patterns and make it your own. Alright, then let's delete everything and start from scratch like always. First thing, we will need something to instance. So I will use this sphere here, and we can already scale it down to 0.1 and then plug it into a geometry. Actually, we can already make a copy of it because we will create two of them. We can also already create a Phong material and apply it to both of them just to get some better light and shadow later. And also let's create a basic render setup so that we have this out of the way. Okay, I'll just activate the display flag here so that we see what's going on. So I would like to use a sine wave pattern as a starting point here. So let's just create a pattern job and set its length to 1. Name the channel TX1 and let's plug it into a trail. And let's also add a null here and call this instance data. Now to activate instancing, we can go into our geometry, go to the instance tab here and switch this toggle here to on. And let's drag and drop our instance data as the default instance OP. And let's use TX here already, but nothing happens yet because we should animate our pattern here. So let's do that with a noise and set it to these values here. And under common, turn time slice on. Let's also plug this into a null here. And let's reference this by activating the viewer to our pattern face. And as you see now, something starts moving. I also want to use the noise data here for the amplitude of our face. So let's just add a math here, but I want to change the range from 0, 1, no, actually from -1, 1 to 0 and 1.5. And we can reference this value to the amplitude here. And now you see something is happening here already, but we still need a TY and TZ value. So let's make a copy of the pattern job here. Change the channel name to TY1 and let's change its type to cosine. Also plug this into our trail here, and we can use in our geometry now TY1 for the TY value. And as you see, we kind of get something similar, like a kind of spiral already. And let's have a look in our 3D viewer here. So we can just create another pane and change its type to geometry viewer. And as you see, this is now how our instances look, but we still need a TZ value. So let's close this here again create another pattern chop and change its type to ramp. And now it's also time to create a control parameter for the amount of instances, because they always, like all the data that we use as instancing data, has to have the same amount of samples. And for that we can create a constant chop here and call this here number instances, and let's set it to 500 for now. And we need to reference this to our trail, so to the window length. And you also have to change the length here to samples. And in our pattern for our z-axis, we have to reference it under length. And we can also change the channel name here to TZ. And now let's merge this TZ channel into our instance data here. So we can just insert a merge chop and also connect the TZ. And now we can use under the geometry, under translate Z, our TZ value. So let's have a look in the geometry viewer. And as you see, we kind of get a different look here already, because now it's also growing in its height. Maybe it's a bit squashed, so let's go to the pattern 3 for our TZ and change the amplitude. So if you increase that, let's maybe say to 10, we get a longer trail here. We'll just turn off the background viewer here till we have something nice to look at. In the meantime, we can use our 3D viewer to have a look. And it would actually be nice to have a counterpart, which is on the opposite side of this kind of spiral, to get a kind of DNA spiral. To do that, we can just copy our existing patterns here. So let's make a little bit of space and just copy these two here, and let's rename them to tx2 and ty2. And under phase, we can just add a plus 0.5 and here as well. And this will offset the phase, plus 0.5, and this will offset the phase to the opposite side. Yeah, and these we can also plug into the trail here. And in our second geometry, let's also activate instancing here. Also use the instance data here as the default instance operator. And let's choose tx2, ty2 and tz. And let's have a look in the 3D viewer. And as you can see, we now have like a counterpart to our first spiral. All right, before we add color and some nice camera movements, let's actually include some audio reactivity. So I'm just going to drop the audio file in here, which includes the standard TouchDesigner song, and with an audio device out, we can listen to it, but I will turn it off. And under palette, we can find under tools the audio analysis component here. So you can just drag and drop it. And let's connect our audio file in. And I want to use the low and the mid data. So I'm just going to activate this. And then I'm just gonna use a select, or actually two, and just choose low on the first one and mid for the second one. Okay, and now we have some data for the low values of our audio here, but I would actually like to smoothen that out a little bit. So let's add a filter. Otherwise our animation will be very choppy later. The filter, I just set to the filter width to 0.2 seconds. Otherwise, as you see, if it's set to 1, it's not really audio reactive anymore. It's too much of a lag, so I'm just going to use 0.2. Also to have better control over the values, because we will use it for the scale of the instances. Let's just add a math here already, and also a trail. And of course, also here we have to set the window length to the same like our data from the pattern chops. So let's set this to samples and also reference our number of instances here. One more step for the audio reactive data. So let's add a rename here and call this scale 1 and also add a null. And now we can copy all that and just connect the mid data to it and just change the rename to scale 2. And now we can also connect these two chops here to our merge to have it all in one operator. So here's our merge, and let's just select both of them and connect them. And as you see, it just gets added to our instance data here. So now to use this data, we have to go back to our geometry, and under the scale, we can just use scale 1 here. Scale 1, maybe just on 2 axes, so on scale X and scale Y. And on Geo 2, I'm just going to use scale 2 on Y and on Z. Okay. It looks very weird because our instances get super small. So let's have a look in the 3D viewer here. And this is because the values for our scaling are going down to 0, which is of course, well, nothing, it's too small. And that is why we have our math chops here. So where is it? Yeah, math. Let's go to range and change its range from 0.1 to maybe 0.4, which is the minimum, and maximum 3. And let's do the same for this one here, 0.4 and 3. And when all these small ones disappeared, now you see that, well, it looks better already, and our instances don't disappear anymore. Okay, now we need to do something with the camera. And actually, let's also, I forgot to, oh no, we have a light here. Yeah, we need to animate our camera and our light to, well, make this weird looking perspective here more interesting. And I like to use a circle swap, which I can then reference to the camera as a path to animate it. So let's create a circle, also add a transform already, and add a null. And let's open the 3D viewer again, just so you can see and understand better what's going on. Let's activate also the display flag here. And here at the bottom now, you see our circle. So first thing, I just want to increase the radius, maybe to, I don't know, 5 or 6 or whatever. Let's do it to 6. And now we can, let's make this a bit smaller. Under camera, we can drag and drop this null from our circle here to the path swap, and also set the translate values to 0 from our camera. And now you see the camera is kind of attached to our circle here. Let's do the same for the light. Yeah, and as you see now, when you, for example, change the radius here, the camera stays attached to the circle. Okay, but in our render we don't see anything because well, the camera points in the wrong direction. So we need to give it something to look at, and I want to have it look at the top of the instances here and place it in the center here, the look at point. So let's create a null component. So under components, just look for null. And the camera under look at, let's just reference this object already. But right now it is here at the bottom, but we want to have it at the same height like our instances here. So maybe let's just create a second control parameter for that. So in our constant, just add another one and call it, I don't know, height. And we can reference this now. So maybe let's put it to 10. So we can then reference it to our translate TZ value here and also to the pattern for our Z value, which is actually the amplitude, yeah, which defines how high our instances go. So let's also put this here. And now when you change this value, it is going to change the look at direction or the look at position of our null object and also the length or the height of our instances. And one more thing, we also need to reference this to the position of our circle here. So under transform, let's use this value also for our TZ value here. Like this. Okay, so let's have a look at the render. Yeah, now it's looking here from the side, and well, it's still kind of static, or it is static. So I would like to animate this circle here. So the rotation values, we can just use abs time.seconds and multiply it by, I don't know, some value like maybe 15. And as you can see, this is now turning, and we can copy that to the other rotation parameters here and just add another multiply to it. Yeah, the higher the number here, the faster it rotates. And one more thing, oh yeah, I see the light is way off, so we also just need to position it to 0 here, that the light and the camera always travels together. Okay, now we can maybe activate the viewer here again, and it looks already way more interesting because the camera is like rotating and moving around, but we get this sudden jumps here. And I think if we deactivate orient along path, we should get rid of it. Okay, last thing, let's add some color to these instances, and we can do that by creating a ramp top. So let's create a ramp and attach it to a null already. Let's maybe place it, I don't know, somewhere here. And in the resolution, we need to reference again that we have the same amount of samples or the same amount of information. We have to use the number of instances as the resolution X value here. And for Y, just put a 1. And then you will get, let me just turn off the background viewer here, otherwise I get dizzy. And yeah, then you get this small line here. And let's maybe just give it some color here. I don't know, some bright blue and some dark blue. And I also like to set it to mirror. And then we can use this as a color operator under instance 2 page, and then under the color OP, we can just drag and drop our null from our ramp and use R G, and B. So we activate it again. And let's do the same, or maybe let's create a copy of this ramp and just swap the colors here. Let's also add a null. And this we can then reference as the color OP for our second geometry. R, G, and B. And yeah, now you can just change the colors here and also see how it's affecting it directly. Yeah, feel free to put any colors you want here. And yeah, let's just have a look for the, well, let's turn on the audio for a second and have a look at the render. Okay. You might have to, let me turn that off again. You might have to adjust the threshold parameters here in the audio analysis if you use different tracks than the standard TouchDesigner track. So you can just activate the viewer here, and then you can play with the threshold and also with the gain amount and stuff, so that you get some values for the low and the midtones here. Yeah? If your input audio is very, how to say, very quiet, you might have to lower the threshold here. All right, that's it for the tutorial.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like our YouTube content, I highly recommend you check out the Interactive and Immersive HQ Pro. The HQ Pro is the only comprehensive educational resource and community for immersive design, TouchDesigner, and creative tech pros. In the HQ Pro trainings, we cover almost any topic you can think of, and we go way more in depth than we do in our YouTube tutorials. We have a private group where Matthew Reagan, myself, and our other industry veteran and pioneer teachers answer your questions every single day. If that sounds cool, click the link in the description to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more free TouchDesigner and immersive content.